Wild Wind. Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verses 1 through 5 says, "Night after night on my bed, I looked for the one I love." So this is after she said, "Draw me away." And he said, "All right, come with me." And she was like, "Well, I mean, not right now." And then he leaves. So we have that lyric in Hard Things. He says, I can't stick around even if you want to stay behind. He still has things to do and engage in. But he's looking for people who will fellowship with him in it. And so anyway, so he leaves. She doesn't feel his presence, and now she can't sleep, and she's restless. She's under the shade of the apple tree, but she doesn't want it anymore because he's not there, which is great. And so she says, "I'll get up now and I'll roam the city, through the streets, the open places, and I will look for the man I love." And so I looked for him, but I didn't find him. The guards roaming the city found him, and I said, "Have you seen him?" Scarcely had I left them, I found the one I loved, and I held on to him, and I would not let him go. So this will happen again in chapter 5. A little bit different dynamics. The next time the guards are going to beat her up. But the lyrics to this song, to Wild Wind, and this is one of those interlude songs, are, "Well, the wind it comes and goes like eternity and time, but I'm looking for the one I love, lest in regret I die. If heaven can be taken by violence in the night, I will rise and I will seek until him I find." So there's another stanza after this, but just to go through these lyrics, John 3 says the wind blows where it wants to, and you hear the sound, but you don't know where it comes from or where it's going. That is how it is with everyone who's been born of the Spirit, but you have to be born again. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says he's put eternity in your heart, so you will grasp for him. Isaiah 57:15 says the high and lofty one inhabits eternity. It's one of my favorite verses. I don't even know what it means, but I think it's so, powerful. It's like that scene in Lion King where the hyenas are saying Mufasa's name. Whoa! Say it again. That's a Mufasa line. He inhabits eternity. Now, the thing that you should know, again, like I said, it's different in chapter 5 when he removes his presence to test her. She didn't do anything wrong, but he's drawing her into a deeper commitment, a deeper obedience. And my notes just scrolled to the end. But then the watchman, she goes looking for him because she hears his voice. He puts his hand on the door. It's dripping with myrrh. This is like Garden of Gethsemane, like fellowship in his sufferings. And then she gets up, because she's like, I'm in, I'll go with you. I don't want to be compromised in any other way. But then she opens the door and he's gone. So then she goes and looks for him in the way that she looked for him before, and she doesn't find him like she found him before. And in fact, the folks who are supposed to take care of her beat her up. Sometimes following Jesus gets you a black eye. Fill in the blank. We all have different lives, different stories, different testimonies. Maybe your body is failing you and you are clinging to the hope of the resurrection, but your body is arguing with you every day. Has God really said? Why would he do this to you? Or maybe you were involved in something and your friend really hurt you, or your family or your spouse, somebody put you in pain or whatever. Song chapter 5 is where we got the term the dark night of the soul. Whatever it is gnarlier than you anticipated, but you didn't do anything wrong. And that makes it really confusing and easy to get offended. But the incredible thing here is that she's not offended. She's unoffendable. And so she says again to the watchman, "Listen, if you find him, tell him I am looking for him. Daughters of Jerusalem, if you find him, tell him I am looking for him and I'm lovesick. I'm not offended. I'm all in. I'm not going anywhere." And then she finds him again, and it's beautiful, So the line in the lyric, "I'm looking for the one I love, lest in regret I die." 1 John 2:28 says, "And now, children, remain united with him so that when he appears we may have confidence and not shrink back from him in shame at his coming." It is possible to see Jesus and feel regret that you didn't shatter your alabaster. So go all in, do difficult things, die without regret. If heaven can be taken by violence in the night, Matthew 11, and Jesus is talking about John the Baptist, and he says, "Among those born of women, there has not risen one greater than John the Baptist. But he who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than John the Baptist. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force." What he's saying is, You have the same access to the kingdom of heaven that John the Baptist had. You want it, you can have it. You can have as much of Jesus as you want. So I will rise, I will seek, I'll go into the streets and the squares and seek him. So this last stanza here is, these streets are dark without sunlight, and Jesus, we are going to dance or fight tonight. So, maybe you hear that and you're like, is this heresy? No. Because Genesis 32, Jacob wrestles with the God-man and demands to know his name. This is interesting. You can look through these theophanies, these appearances of the God-man throughout the books of Moses, throughout the prophet, the scriptures, particularly in the historical books. And people ask him his name, he never gives it. He said to Samson's parents, "Why do you want to know my name? Because you see that it's beautiful." And then he disappears in the burnt offering. But Jacob wrestled with God overnight, and the Lord broke his leg, broke his hip, and gave him a new name. And he was no longer known as Deceiver, he was known as Israel. You have wrestled with God, you've been triumphant with God, but God will prevail. God will prevail. So you might get into a wrestling match with him, and he might wound you and cripple you. You might limp moving forward, but who is this coming up out of the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? So, we'll stop there and we'll head into the next song. Thanks for tuning in.